Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode for Down to Business. Bit of a great one today. We're here with Mel Histon. Mel, for those that don't know, a bit of a Newcastle identity, is the founder of Got Your Back Sister, which is a very, very worthy not-for-profit and charity. It's Newcastle based that helps women and children that realistically are escaping domestic violence. Something that's very topical these days, and it's a wonderful effort. But I'll let her talk more about that. Host of the Hey Soul Sister podcast on my game today, and also founder and real collaborator for the Sister Code, which is a community that empowers women to find their voice. Bit of more research, marketing background,
Yes.
Former photographer, mother, wife, friend of many, and loves a good time, and she's here to join us today. So welcome, Mel.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me along.
Absolute pleasure. I've given a very brief overview. Give me a bit of the background for the Mel Histon story.
Oh, well, it's a crazy story with it's a total roller coaster. But it's something that I quite often share because I think it shows the impact that words and parents can have on your life. But I remember in high school, I always wanted to be a photographer. Hence, years later, I actually started a photography business, which was really interesting. Starting a small business, talk about a learning curve. But I remember being in high school and doing really well at photography as a subject. And my dad was like, and I said to Dad, I want to be a photographer. And Dad was like, that's not a job. You can't be a photographer. You need to go to uni and do a business degree. So I ended up doing that, and went through, down this whole business marketing path and learnt so much on that journey. But then years later, I had always thought about being a photographer, and then decided, I think it was back in 2007, I'm going to buy a digital camera. I'm going to learn how to do photography again, and it set me off on this whole other path, which ended up starting the charity Got Your Back Sister. And it's so interesting. I say to people, I had never thought of starting a charity. I was never socially aware ever. I've never been an activist or a lobbyist ever. It still astounds me that I started a charity. But it's so interesting when you look at the dots and the things that happened in my life, even getting breast cancer. Excuse me for a sec. Sorry. Even getting breast cancer, I had started my photography business 12 months into doing that, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer and didn't work for 12 months, had to do the surgery, the chemotherapy, the radiation treatment. I had this whole change of perspective of life and how I wanted my life to be. And it was when I finished that treatment after 12 months, I started the photography again, and I remember one day I was like, I would really like to go to a third world country to do a photography project for a non-profit. And it happened. It was 2 years later, I heard that a team were going to Nepal to make a documentary about the sex trafficking of Nepali women and children. And I reached out and I said, hey, would you like a photographer to go along? And they were like, no, we've got one. We're okay. But then that photographer fell through. So they reached out to me, and I ended up going to Nepal and being involved in this photography project, spending 2 weeks hearing the most horrendous stories of abuse of women and girls and sex trafficking of women and girls, and then came back to Newcastle and felt really compelled to do something. And it's so interesting when I look about all those little things that happened in my life that got to that point. I started the Sister Code, holding events, bringing women together to support other women and fundraise for other women, and then started Got Your Back Sister to help women who experienced abuse in our own community. And I always find it astounding that I'm here doing what I'm doing because it was never part of a master plan.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole lot in that background piece I want to pick up on. A lot of the, this is a business podcast generally, loosely, but a lot of business owners fall into what they love doing, but they have no idea about how to run a business because they're good at what they do. They think, well, let's go and do it for myself. How much did that help you actually going and following your father's advice, whether you agreed or not, but going and doing the business / marketing and then building that into your passion later?
Do you know what? Absolutely. It's key, and it's one of the things that I guess that, doing the business and I'd majored in marketing and did well in my degree. that it actually really has set me up to, in terms of building the business, promoting Got Your Back Sister. A lot of people say to me, oh, how have you managed to, get in front of so many people and engage community? And it's funny, it was just something that I always just knew how to do because I had done the degree, but then had worked for various government departments and private companies in that marketing role. So I kind of had a bit of, you start to live and breathe marketing and you start to get that marketing mindset, I guess. So for me, that kind of has been second nature, but it certainly has set me up. And in terms of understanding how to grow a business, and in terms of that marketing and visibility. And interestingly, even when I started the photography business, that was back in 2008, having that understanding of how to position yourself differently from other people. I mean, there are so many photographers out there, so I had to really think hard about going, how do I niche myself? How am I different from everybody else? How do I price myself? How do I promote myself so that I'm seen as a unique photographer and photography business that's different and not just emulating other photographers? And a lot of that came from, that business and marketing training. And similarly with Got Your Back Sister, that has been, I've thought really long and hard about how do we position ourselves so that we're unique from other domestic violence charities. What's our offering and how do we provide those services that maybe other domestic violence service aren't able to provide, often because of their funding model, but what can we do and how can we position ourselves so that we're a unique organisation?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you don't mind me asking about your experience of breast cancer, and I mean, the firm I work for is very passionate about this topic and very much behind their fundraising initiatives, but not so much the tragedy of having that, but what that teach you out of that process, because a lot of people would not see the opportunity and the change of life and the resilience that's been shown. So can you talk about some of that and how that's helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me. Sorry, you'll edit that out, won't you? Can you edit that out? Oh, sorry, Courtney. Having the breast cancer, and it was 12 months of treatment and 12 months of essentially I kind of stopped my life and spent a lot of time at home, a lot of time alone, being really sick. And, I remember one time I hadn't left the house for 3 weeks and feeling so dreadful and looking at myself in the mirror with no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes. I was all red and puffy from the chemotherapy and the steroids and kind of not really recognising myself. And I remember lying on the floor a lot because we had no aircon in that house. It was really hot. So I remember lying on the floor a lot, but lying there thinking, when I get through this, how do I want my life to be? And I just knew that I wanted better relationships. I wanted to live a life of adventure. I wanted to live a happy life and a life on purpose. I remember really consciously thinking that. And I remember thinking that even though that was a really shitty time, that I wanted the breast cancer for me to have meant something positive. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't want to get through that and just go back to my life because I've always been a worrier. I've always been quite an anxious, worrying sort of person. I used to vomit in the car park before swimming lessons when I was a kid. I was really quite anxious and I just remember thinking, I don't want to be that way. And it's interesting, I remember standing in the kitchen with my husband Craig when I was getting to the end of the breast cancer treatment, and my husband was saying to me, what do you think you're going to do? Do you think you'll just go and get a job? And I remember thinking to myself, no, and saying to him, no, I think I'm meant to do the photography. And he was like, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard. You're starting a business all over again. You can't rely on friends and family to be your clients. You have to go out there. You have to find clients. You have to go and do the work and engaging people, everything that goes with building a business. He said, you can't just kind of rely on mums, your mums and dads and friends to throw work your way. Do you really want to do that? And I remember thinking, and I said to him, yeah, I do. I have this feeling that I meant to do that, and understanding that it was going to be a hard road because for me, the easy thing to do was to go and get a job. The hard thing was to go and build a business. But I had this feeling I meant to do this, and it was a lot of digging deep, but I'm really glad that I did get through that time, and I had a total mindset shift throughout that whole treatment time, and really grateful for the decision that I did make to push through and take the hard road.
So I guess part of that is, and as you said, having to be challenged, which I think all of us in business, life, but business generally need. But then no doubt having a well thought out plan around what you're going to do.
Absolutely. And do you know what? I had a lot of mentoring and coaching. So I didn't just kind of like go off into the world and kind of go, I'm starting a photography business again. I actually signed up, with a business mentor, and it was not my husband. To actually sit down and go, right, okay, put together that business plan, put together that marketing strategy to go, okay, well, how do I position myself differently? What's my offering? How do I price myself so that it's, fit for the market, but also different from other people? And really, but also I had to have that self-belief that I could do it. Yeah, and I mean, I think that accounts for a lot, having that self-belief, but also having the right people around you to actually lift you up, because I did have naysayers and people that were like, what would you want to do that for?
Yeah, and I've sometimes get a bit in trouble for some of the things I say, but I think if you're around people like that, well, why you're around them?
Yeah.
And unfortunately it's hard because most of the time that's family and friends.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things that I've learnt is that there are going to be naysayers, and I've had a lot, especially growing Got Your Back Sister. It's interesting, I found that sometimes people are happy to be there for you when things aren't going well. They want to be by your side and pat you on the head and go, you poor thing. But when you're actually doing well, not everybody, but some people don't like it. And it's only because it's confronting for them, because it's maybe there's something going on for their lives, and so it's seeing you rise, it makes them uncomfortable because maybe they're not feeling so great about where they're at. Absolutely.
Well, hats off that you can stay there. But and I guess the other key one out of what we just went through before, and which most people won't do because they stay in that thing we call comfort zone, actually reaching out and even taking on quite a foreign land and a project that you got in Nepal. How'd that come about? I mean, I know you said you reached out, but how'd you have that support, and even your husband saying, go for it, that sort of thing?
I was really lucky. Craig's actually been really supportive. Once I've made a decision to do things, he's been really supportive. Going to Nepal, that was totally out of my comfort zone, and being really confronted with horrific stories of abuse. Again, that being out in the world and having those experiences, you have a choice to go, I'm going to grow and expand my mindset and how I see the world and what I can do in the world, or you don't. And so I have found that, that experience was amazing. But it's interesting, you talking about getting out of your comfort zone. I have found since starting Got Your Back Sister, I'm out of my comfort zone all the time. But it's interesting because it is like that muscle that when you work it, when you train it, it becomes easier all the time. I'm working on a new campaign right now, and I feel really uncomfortable about it. And I was sitting there thinking about it, going, it's another stretch. I feel out of my comfort zone. I feel uncomfortable. But then I remember every year, everything that we've done, I have felt uncomfortable and really out of my comfort zone. When we partnered with the Newcastle Knights for the first time, I've never done anything like that. And every step of the way, I was just trying to figure it out, but would sit down, do a plan. I'd do research, on YouTube and for different football partnerships and activations and things. So I'd do my research and planning. And I felt uncomfortable all the way. But I also, when you get to the end and you do it once, it's a little bit easier, and then it's a little bit easier, and it's a little bit easier. And so that's one of the things that I've learnt now. I'm like, do you know what? Yeah, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm totally out of my comfort zone. I don't like this. But I know that the reward is there when I push through. And I've also learnt as well that that's why you've got to have the right people around you. You've got to have the right people that are there with you going, we can do this. And actually, Mel, you've got this. And for me, that's like our board members and our team members and some dear close friends. It's really important. And I know it's a bit of a cliche. People talk all the time about having the right people around you, but that has made all the difference for me is that. And it means that, it means that we can push forward and try new things because you've got people that have your back.
Well, I know you said, once you break out of that, that comfort area, if you like, that comfort zone grows, and it becomes that bit easy next time. And all of a sudden you look back 12 months, 2 years, whatever it is, you go, what was your comfort zone or what you felt comfortable doing is totally different to where it is now.
Absolutely, and just with that Knights example again, so Got Your Back Sister partnered with the Knights, and we were looking to do a community campaign and to engage community in a big way to visibly show that we need to stand against domestic violence. So we approached Wendy Carmichael at the time, who was the COO back then, and she was like, "We're on board. Let's do this." And again, that very first year was so uncomfortable, and then we did 2 other years where we two following years, so we did 3 years in a row of doing that partnership and community halftime activation, which that is months of planning. For 6 minutes on the field is 4 months of planning and work. But then the second and third time, it was not that big a deal. So I go, for anybody, it's like sometimes you just got to push through that first time and that fear and the doubt, but know that and have the confidence that when you get through, the rewards are there, and then next time it's easier.
Absolutely. That's good. That's real good. I want to get into a bit more of I guess the structure and the framework and governance, etc., of your organisations. But let's talk a bit about your main cause with Got Your Back Sister, domestic violence. Yeah. And I mean, I guess you'd kind of say, well, I'm assuming you're pretty proud with. It's taken a long time to get that recognition, but I know when you watch the television now, or when you're hearing ads, or etc., not just Got Your Back Sister, but it's part of a movement that's really starting to change within Australia and long overdue.
Do you know what? Absolutely. When you look back 20 years ago, nobody talked about domestic violence. It was like that happens behind closed doors. Even police didn't get involved. They're like family dispute, home dispute, we're not getting involved. And it is one of the things that I feel really good about with Got Your Back Sister is, we've been going 6.5 years now. And in that very first year, myself and Bill Smith, who's on our board, we were at the pub one day having a chat and going, we need to consciously every year be doing something visible in the community, a big community campaign. We need to be doing that because it's so important for women and men who are experiencing domestic violence. They need to see that that's not okay, and they need to go, wow, look at all these people talking about it. And I know that our campaigns are pretty mainstream, and that we try and target like a broad section of the community. But I go, it's really important for us to reach a broad section of the community. And so, that has been really important. And it is one of the things that I feel really good about is that each year we're looking to grow and engage more people. And what is awesome is, we've now changed our campaign model. We do I Run For Her, which is a one-day walk, choose your own adventure, walk, run. And we do, media and social media around that. But what I have found is that people, when they get involved, and organisations, when they get involved, they all say, I'm doing this because I know this happened to my mum, my sister, my friend, my brother, somebody at work. We had a sponsor that say, we sponsor your I Run For Her because we have women in our organisation that we know have lived with a violent partner. So their community gets on board because they're like, the more we talk about it, the more that we get to a point where hopefully it will educate people and it will end. That's the end game. Yeah.
No, that's great. And I think, we're going for some of this for quite some time. I want to get some of the crux behind it, but, you've obviously got a massive passion in this space, okay? And I guess further, you've got a purpose, but you start to touch on, but sometimes that's not enough. There's plenty of initiatives that have been started and just don't get the support, etc. How have you sustained, you mentioned some of the campaigns, but how have you sustained and turned it into a business, a not-for-profit business at that, but how have you made sure that it, turns the lights on and pays the bills, and now you've got facilities you've got to maintain it and keep that, support there for really the benefactors? Yeah.
That's a good question. And the last 6.5 years have been the biggest learning journey of my life. I would say, and it's funny because I almost feel a little bit like, I probably haven't really sat back and really done a lot of analysis about how I managed to do that. But so let me think. Do you know what? Right from the beginning, we had a really clear vision, myself and the board, and so we had a really clear vision and a really clear purpose around wanting to help women and children in the community. We set some goals initially around, going, we want to grow and expand, and, we're going to hit these targets in terms of, locations that we're at. And then we actually went, you know what, that's just a bit of ego. What's really important is about providing service. It's about going, what's the need out there and how do we service that? And that's something that we have continued to do. But it's interesting that, you know, you can't do that alone. And the very first year I was at home doing this from home, as I essentially got a home-based charity, a home-based business. And there's many people that start out working at home, but then it's also going, you know, we need to take those baby steps to get the right people in the team. And, you know, we didn't jump in one day and go, we've got 5 team members. It's like, okay, we started off with a VA for 5 hours a week. He became 8 hours a week, and then a contractor. And then we put our first employee on. And I think that was in the third year, maybe in the third year, we put our first employee on. And that was a massive step. I remember being so nervous around that. You know, I remember going with the board, I found a building and I was like, oh, okay, I think that, you know, can you guys come and have a look at this building? Do you think that we should take it on? And I remember going, oh God, I'm standing on the edge of a cliff about to jump off because that's a big responsibility. And the board are like, no, this is what we need. This way you need right people around you. Because I was getting fearful and they're like, no, we need to take this step. This is going to mean a lot for us that we can provide greater service because we have a home base. And do you know what? Each year, I'll be honest with you, I haven't, in terms of growing and expanding, I haven't had a big strategic plan. It's been more around going, what's the need? What do we need now? What do the women that we serve need? And how are we going to best do that? But then what does the organisation need to service that? So, okay, now we need a caseworker because we're getting women that are calling up and they need crisis information and advice. You know, it's about getting those right people on board, the right, oh God, I feel like I'm waffling a little bit.
No, go
Sorry.
for it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, getting the right people on board. And every step in the way, I guess, because I'm constantly thinking, living and breathing, got your back, sister, it's almost like, okay, what do we need now? Now we need a bookkeeper. Now we need, okay, a volunteer bookkeeper's not going to cut it. Now we need a paid bookkeeper. Now we need our accountant to come in and, you know, and have a much more hands-on say in the business, in the charity. Sorry, I feel like I'm just waffling.
But even on that, you know, I like you said about, you know, the people around you and having, I mean, I don't know how much progress you might tell us, but with regard to your board, for instance, you know, a lot of the time when we start, you know, I've got friends that started an initiative, you know, that's where it starts before it becomes a charity, etc. You know, you got people that are close to you that you think, oh, they'll go all right, we'll help out.
Yeah.
How has that evolved over the time to be more skills-based or experience-based, etc.?
Yeah. In terms of getting the right people on board?
Yeah, or did you just have the right people from the get-go?
No, I had some wrong people.
Okay.
Just a couple. Yeah, a couple of wrong people. But I suppose what I've learned, can I just tell a little story?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. So years ago, I was working for WorkCover as a media public affairs person. And we had a team training day and we had somebody come in, a facilitator come in, and they made the whole team do Myers-Briggs, and there was like 10 of us in the team. And it came out that, you know, when you do the questionnaire and you pump out who you are, and I'm an ENFP, and it actually came out that actually I'm not a leader, I'm a worker bee. And I remember thinking, so that really impacted me. For the next 10 years, I was like, oh, I'm not a leader. I'm not a manager. I'm not a leader. I'm a worker bee. I'm great in a team, but I'm not a great leader. So it's been really interesting over the last 6.5 years to actually have to address that and see myself in a different way and actually go, no, I need to lead and hold the vision for this team and hold the space for the team. That has been a really interesting journey. And part of that has been building the team and having the right people in the team. And so it's in the beginning, I was like, right, that's probably why I had contractors to start with. I'm like, right, I just need somebody to help me out and take the weight of all the work off. But then over time, it's like, no, actually, we need a person with these skills and these skills. And then we would find those people. But what I have since found is how important it is for the culture of the team, the culture of the organisation, and how it's about having the right people with the right skills, but also the right people that can gel and work together. so that we hold the culture together. That's been one of my biggest learning curves, and especially for someone that was told they're not a leader or they're a worker bee. So I've had to do a lot of thinking, and I listened to lots of podcasts around that about who do I need to be to lead Got Your Back Sister, to lead this organisation and lead our team so that we have a great culture and that everybody works together. And you know what? There's been a couple of mistakes along the way, but the interesting thing is that those couple of little mistakes that those people kind of recognised it too. So, you know, they kind of headed off pretty quickly. But that has been a really interesting journey. It's like the right skills, but also the right I guess, mindset of those people. And so now we've even started with recruiting. We do psychometric testing now.
Yeah, it's funny. It's I mean, I guess opinions are like backsides. You know, everyone's got one.
Yep.
But the leadership one, I had that as a point to cover off on, and I think my definition of a leader, to be a leader, you've got to have followers. I'm not talking the Instagram followers or whatever, but you know.
Yep.
And if you've got that, I think for you, what shines through is the passion. If you've got that passion, you can turn that into what we're trying to achieve. Give something people to follow, for people to follow, and be that person at the front of the line driving the message home. You know, to me, that's probably the powerful thing about it, as opposed to a psychometric test telling you what you are and what you aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you know what? I've had to do work on myself to do that and to understand that. Yeah, that's been really interesting. Is actually going, do you know what? My one of my roles as the leader of Got Your Back Sister is to actually hold that passion for the team, and so that they get excited about what we do. And I see that in them. They are excited about what they do, and they feel really good about what they do. So I go, yeah, that's one of my roles, is to keep that passion, you know, with them. And that's generally by being inclusive with them, including them with information, including them with decision making, and you know, and for me, it's been letting go. You know, I look back a few years ago and I was holding tight to everything, you know, every little role I was like totally attached and holding on to, and then actually going, no, I need to let go and let our team empower them so that they can do the job the best they can. And by doing that, they love it.
Well, I think further that, and this is for business owners too, one of the killers of, you know, not for a charity, but for a business in a valuation sense, is key person risk.
Yep.
But I guess one of the killers, even in your sense, is key person risk for its you know, its longevity and ability to continue whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
Without that delegation, without that empowering, as you said, you're not there. It stops. You know, which is not a great I guess representation of what you're trying to achieve for a much bigger cause.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. The last 2 years, I would say that's something that I know I've had to focus on is doing that. And part of that has been the letting go process and going, for example, Joey, you know what, you now run the programs and the operations, and we might have a catch up, you know, every week, every fortnight, but actually I totally trust that she knows what she's doing, she loves what she does, and she's going to make some really good decisions. And I know that if she's not sure, she'll come to me.
Yeah, the key part there is having, I think, no doubt, whether you've got it as documented as you want to or not, your catch-ups, but having a structure and framework so that people know, you know, the rules of the game, if you like, but you let them go and show their talent.
Absolutely. And you know what, that's been a learning curve for me because, you know, nobody taught me that. I've had to literally learn that by reading and looking at YouTube and that sort of thing, because I kind of didn't come up through an organisation where I was trained to manage or lead. I've had to kind of figure that out as I go. And also, but talking to other successful business people, that has been really wonderful. People who will share with me to teach me that. But yeah, you're right. It's like having the structure, having the framework work. That doesn't come naturally to me. I have to work really hard at that. But I also see the benefit when our team are happy and they're flying and doing really great work.
No, we see it all the time. And as I said, this probably comes back to a lot of people that get into business because they've either fallen in it or they're good at what they actually do, you know, the brickie or the accountant or whatever. But they actually don't understand business. And business at the end of the day isn't that hard. And I say that, you know, not being disrespectful, but it's not that hard. It's the people generally that make it hard. Yeah. And I think some of the things you mentioned are great for any business owner watching around, you know, what is that vision? You know, and if you've got the passion behind it, people will follow. Having, you know, horses for courses, the right people in the right seats, and allowing them to deliver on what you want them to deliver upon. But having that framework, whether you want something done a certain way, having that structure in place to help them, you know, play within it.
I love that you just said that. You've totally just pulled my story together and in those wonderful dot points. That's great. Absolutely.
So, I guess the part that, I've had a fair bit to do with not-for-profits over the years, being on boards or quite passionate about helping fundraise, that sort of stuff. And I did some research at one point in time, a few years ago now, but at that point in time there was 54,000 registered not-for-profits or DGRs and charities in Australia. Now, you think about a population, it's about 2 for every 1 person. That's a lot of people asking for help, assistance, money, and I know the government doesn't come forward with too much for many cases.
Yeah, well, we don't get government funding, so we're totally self-funded.
So how then, that's even more poignant to my question, how do you stand out from the crowd when, as a business owner, I reckon I get at least a request a week, and that's probably being conservative, on helping someone, and right down to sporting clubs or charities. How do you stand out from the crowd and get people on board, with your passion, but when there's so many with passion?
That's a really good question. And what I can say, I guess, is what I see has worked for us. And right from the beginning, I guess I wanted Got Your Back Sister to be, to reach the mainstream, to reach a lot of people. So I actually didn't want to niche Got Your Back Sister. You know what's funny? With our logo, if you look at a lot of other domestic violence charities and you look at their logos, they're purple. And when I got the local Neon Zoo designers to come up with our logo, and I specifically wanted aqua because I wanted it to appeal to men and women. That was a bit of a colour that's not really. So that was like a conscious decision. I went to a pro blogger conference years ago and they were talking about the power and the importance of video. So that was something that I was like, do you know what, that's how we can reach the mainstream, reach people and share those messages around domestic violence is via video. So that was something that there was some conscious decisions there. Partnerships, I think maybe at that same conference and they were talking about the power of collaboration and partnerships. And so that's something that I've consciously sought out to do. So as an example, the activity that we did, the partnership with the Knights over 3 years, we partnered with the Hamilton Hawks Rugby Club. And that's great. They're a grassroots club. I love that we have this partnership and we work together. They support us and we support them. And for them, it's important that they be seen as a family, or that they are a family-orientated club. And for us, it's about, reaching people who never would have thought to have had a conversation around domestic violence, but also good mates and good friendship and what do good relationships look like. So that has been really important as well, that whole learning about partnership and collaborations. What else? Question. Can we go back to the question again? I totally got
just
on
standing out.
Standing out. Okay, you can edit that out, can't you, Cord? Okay, great. Standing out. So that's something that I hadn't seen before in the sector was, other organisations partnering with businesses or with community groups and engaging people that way. And I think for us as well, I saw the importance of using social media to reach a lot of people. So, they're, I guess, some of the key things, is being seen in a way that is appealing to both men and women, because domestic violence does affect men as well. Even though we're a female-orientated charity, it affects men as well. So, appealing to the masses, the use of video to share our messages and to educate people and engage people. We do a lot of community activations and events. So, for example, we do a Got Your Back Sister Hawkeye's Greens round, and that's about getting people involved, people seeing us, wearing our shirts. Our T-shirts have been key in terms of getting people on board and engaging people. When we were at the wildfires last year or the year before when it was, I couldn't believe all these people from Sydney were coming out going, can we buy T-shirts? I'm just going, you know what, it's about understanding, I guess, how to engage people, how to connect with people. And if you do it in the right way, which I think we've done fairly well, that people want to be part of that conversation and people want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
No, that's great. That is great. I don't think that needs more chat. I'll leave that one on that point. I think that's a great one rather than me continuing on that. You've mentioned several times about relationships, partnerships, etc. This is a big one for me. I'm massive on, I think, the difference in business of having one fun, but even getting success and life for that matter is relationships. And that comes off networking as well. We always are natural in this space, and if not, how do you change? And also, how big a part has that been to help you with that message?
Do you know what? It's been all about relationships. Everything that we do has been about building and maintaining positive relationships with people in the organisation. There's a book called Key Person of Influence, and I was at another conference years ago, and I heard somebody lecturing around influence and key people of influence. So that's been really interesting, and going in our space, who are people that might be passionate about domestic violence, or educating community and connecting with those people and holding those relationships, but also what are the organisations that might want to be a part of what we do as well, and maintain, connecting with those organisations and building those relationships. And you know what? It's time and investment to build and grow relationships, but it's actually been so key in what we've done. And as we grow, I'd also say it's a challenge, because as we grow and you engage more people, it's like, okay, how do I give love and time to everybody, and those key corporates and organisations, so that they feel that they get something out of the relationship as well, that it's a win-win. So that's been really interesting. It's something that I think about a lot. Have I connected with that person? What is it that they need? How could we help them? How could we work together?
So again, you've got a fair bit of structure around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good. Now, your charity's purpose around domestic violence, you imagine you see some pretty confronting things, or hear some pretty, emotional and confronting stories. I talk about with my team and clients for that matter, it's how you turn up every day. We've all got, shit going on, for another way of putting it. So it's how you turn up every day, but you're taking another step again, because you're dealing with, real people, real issues, and some pretty, as I said, emotional positions. How do you turn up every day, and then what do you do to help address some of those emotions?
So it's so interesting that you say that, because I consciously, when I walk through the door of HQ, I walk in and I take a deep breath and walk in with a big smile on my face, and I'm really conscious of the energy that I bring to HQ, to Got Your Back Sister. And that's because years ago I was reading an interview with Jane Fonda, and she was talking about filming the film Georgia Rule with Lindsay Lohan. And she said in the interview, it was an interview with Lindsay Lohan talking about being on movie set with Jane Fonda for filming Georgia Rule. And Lindsay said that, she was young, so she'd come in and she might have the shits, or she might, be worried or cranky about something, and she'd come in. And she said Jane Fonda pulled her aside one day and said to her, you need to understand that how you walk into this movie set, how you walk into this space will impact everybody here. So when you walk in, you need to come in and you need to have a good energy, have a good presence. You need to put a smile on your face and understand that how you are is going to impact everybody here. And it's really interesting. That has always stuck with me. And so I go, even if I'm got something on my mind, something might be worrying me, when I walk through the door at HQ, I consciously go, right, I'm stepping in here, and what am I bringing into the building, into Got Your Back Sister today? And I'm like, right, smile on my face, walk in and welcome everybody. And I think as well, our team are very much like that. And I know that they're like that as people, which is really great, because, our values are that people, when they walk into HQ, the women that we help, because they're going through it in one of the most horrendous times in their life, that when they come in, that they feel welcomed and they feel nurtured, and that they feel that we're not going to judge them, and that it's a safe space for them. So it's really interesting. I go, if I walk in with my A game and our team see me like that, and they're like that as humans anyway, but they see that I'm like that will hopefully, maybe rub off on them to bring that as well into HQ, and then the women that we serve benefit. Yeah. Oh,
and it's funny how there's some of those things you get taught growing up that treat people the way you want to be treated, and it's an element of what you're saying there. It does rub off, so that's great.
Yep.
Um, we spoke about leadership within the business, and whether you agree you're a leader or not, and you've probably been that way now. But what about the wider community and seen as leadership? Because obviously you're getting profile, building off the back of some of your initiatives. How has that impacted you, and what do you see as a role there for whether you call it a leader or not, but a person in the wider community?
So you're talking about for somebody else that might want to...
No, just how you've by building what you've built, whether you intend to or not, you've built a profile. Yeah. Do you see yourself as a leader in the wider community, and how has that positively or negatively impacted life and business?
I'm going to say it's not something that I think about really. I kind of feel like most days I'm just doing my do, to be honest.
Yeah.
Most days I just kind of walk into Got Your Back Sister and go, hey girls, let's go get a coffee. And that, it's a day by day thing. I don't think a lot about that because I'll be honest, it would freak me out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
let's not freak out.
Yeah. Well, no, but do you know what? I will say that one thing that I have found, and this has been really hard, is that, it's been really wonderful that some people will reach out and go, oh, love what you're doing in the community, thanks for doing what you do. And it's usually people who may have had their own experiences with abuse, and they don't necessarily tell me that story, but, they will come up quietly and thank me. But I go, it's actually been difficult as well because there are people that, for whatever reason, will frown upon me or what I do. So I go, it's been a really big learning curve for me to go, do you know what, I can't keep everybody happy and to just keep doing the best that I can do. And that's probably why as well I don't think too much about being a leader in the broader community. I just I want to come home to my puppies and my husband and
I think it's great.
Happy.
That's a good answer. I think I've seen him a couple of times now, but I only saw him the other week. Stephen Bradbury was giving a talk, and I think it relates, and maybe to some of your story that we're hearing today about how much you put into this to get to where it is. And his story was, I'm glad that everyone thinks, it took me 20 years to be an overnight success, and it's the effort that goes in each day and what you're putting in. And just so happens the byproduct is the profile, and et cetera, et cetera. So, hopefully that can be seen a bit more.
Yeah, well, and do you know what? It is a massive effort. And, in the first couple of years of Got Your Back Sister, where we had no team, and especially the first year I was working from home, it was 16 hours a day. And I'll just say, I'm a volunteer, so I don't get paid at all from Got Your Back Sister. I do it because I want to give back to community, and I'm really passionate about helping women in the community. But, it was the first couple of years, it was really big, long days at home, sitting on the computer at night when we didn't, designing. I can do a little bit of design because of the photography and doing all that myself. And, but I also understood that having the photography business, it was the same thing. I'd have really long days, when you have your own business, especially in the beginning, the first few years, you have to work really hard. And then I'm kind of going, now I'm lucky that we have a team and don't necessarily, I don't have to put in as many hours as I did. But for anybody who has a business or a charity or whatever that is, I was talking to Susie Mihilis and Amy Pettigrew yesterday around the HMRI event. They just raised $208,000, which is amazing. And, we're chatting going, people don't see the work that goes into it. But that's what happens, and I think it's one thing that when people do start a business, that they need to understand it's a lot of hard work, but it doesn't necessarily always stay like that forever.
No, it doesn't. I think what we see is too many small businesses think, I'm too small to have a finance team, or I'm too small to have HR, or I'm too small to have a marketing strategy. And I always sit there and go, well, no, you've got every one of those, whether you like it or not. It's whether you're doing it well or not. It's just you're wearing every hat.
Yes.
And as you grow, you can actually pass some of those hats off. But I totally agree. Like being a business owner, it has so many thrills and so much potential reward. But, there's no luck. It's hard work that makes luck.
It's absolutely hard work that makes luck, absolutely. And that's why sometimes I guess, when you hear naysayers, it's like, you have no idea how hard I've worked on this. You have no idea. Yeah.
No, that's great. We mentioned mentors a few times. Massive area of my life that I'm quite intrigued by this, and I found, I've had great mentors, hopefully provide a good mentoring to other people, and I think it's a key part of business. don't have to go into detail with who, but talk to me some of the power you've had from mentors in particular outside of just your board and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so interestingly, and she is a board member, but she was a friend and mentor way before there was a Got Your Back sister, was Heidi Pollard, who's now Alexandria Joy. So she was one of my first mentors. So I had worked for her at WorkCover. And then she started a consultancy and I went out and started photography. But she was such a great manager that, I was mentored by her when I started my business. So she's been really key. I like to go to conferences and, really listen to the advice of experts around business. I think there's real value in that. At the moment, I'm being mentored by Kathy Burke. So she was, for 20 years, was the head of the Hunger Project, which is an international charity. And she's amazing. So, that has been really wonderful and helpful. Who else have I looked to for business mentors? Nick Wales. So that's a friend in Sydney who is doing business consultancy, who's been really wonderful. But, I am a really big advocate for the conference and connecting with people. And I was really fortunate twice to go to Necker Island and do the Business Cheeks Leadership Program with Richard Branson and spend some time with Richard Branson, which is really great. And I just remember him saying that, you always hire people that know more than you do. And, that has been really key, for, hiring people that Got Your Back sister, but also it also makes me go, you need to seek out those people, and whether it's on YouTube or whether it's as a coach or a mentor, people who know more than you do, because I go, I'm just trying to figure it out from day to day.
No, it's great. And then I think I hope you agree with me, but I've found, and I've given this advice to that many people, just reach out, because most people want to help. Yeah. In the most part, most people want to share. If anything, they don't think they've got much to share, and usually they're a wealth of knowledge and guidance.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more question, I'll start to try and bring some of this together. I always ask guests, what's your biggest mistake, or if you don't like the word mistake, learning experience that you would pass on to someone, whether they've been an NFP or just getting into business?
Biggest mistake?
Doesn't have to be a biggest, a good one.
Do you know what? I know that I've said it numerous times, it's having the right people, and a couple of times when I've trusted in the wrong people, I didn't realise that maybe they had an agenda that wasn't, or values that weren't aligned with where Got Your Back sister or myself. So that's interesting, and that's probably seen me come undone a little bit, but so that's probably been a mistake.
We got told some years ago by a mentor, and I've still got I share it quite often, a slogan that's hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah,
I think, too often we jump in because, it looks like I can do the role, or we're worried we've got too much on or whatever. But to your point, making sure they actually get what you get and align values or the culture piece or whatever is a pretty key part, and that's not done in one interview.
Do you know what? Absolutely. And it really has been probably the biggest learning for me. And I because, when I reflect back on places that I've worked in my life, you get somebody who's a squeaky wheel, or, they don't have, their values don't align with yours or with the organisation's. It can cause all sorts of problems. And you go, it's just a mismatch at the end of the day. That person will probably do great in another organisation, but not necessarily here. And I go, there's a lot of turmoil that goes with that. I've learned that the hard way. There's a lot of turmoil and sleepless nights and things that go with that. But, but it's also it's part of the journey. And then I'm incredibly grateful now. We've got this really great team who, I'm really, really grateful for. And I will say that I know that you, I mentioned it before and you touched on it, was that whole the psychometric testing. That has been really interesting. And it's not necessarily been around, so we've done the SDI testing with Charlotta Tharap, and that's just been more so look, okay, how do they operate in a team? How do they, what are their values? How do they work under stress? That's been really interesting, because you go, when everything's good. But it's like when there's stress or problems come up, you go, that's when you see how different people operate. And so that's been really interesting. And I do think that has worked really well for us. And I look at our team now and I'm like, you girls are awesome. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, it's wonderful.
Right. We've covered a lot. There's some really good points in there for people, but some of the things that stick out is, what do you learn out of some of the experiences? Resilience particularly stands out from some of your early days. Having that business grounding, that's probably quite unique to most people that we talk to. They've had to do that after the fact. Getting out of your comfort zone, having a crack.
Yeah.
Probably make sure you got some support around you. And you've mentioned that many times about people, good people around you, people that know more than you, and whatever that may be. Delegating, letting people be empowered. And a couple of the other points I really grabbed was the power of, relationships. Understanding what your market is and doing things a bit differently. I like the video. I'm a massive fan of that, hence what we're doing here. The partnerships, and the socials. There's still a lot of businesses that are still a bit wary about that sort of stuff. Turning up every day and setting the tone. That is a really good one to get the best out of your people. Having mentors, really making sure you take the time to find the best people that align values and understand what you're trying to do and want to help you fulfill that vision. Probably missed a heap, but that's some pretty sound advice for whether you're in an NFP, in business, or just generally in life, I guess.
Yeah. And I think I'm just going to throw one more thing in, if that's okay.
Go for your life.
Another thing that I've really learned over the last 6.5 years, and, getting 6.5 years older, has been, you know what, it's actually all okay and things will work out in the end. And even though sometimes, shit might happen. And it feels like, oh my goodness, how are we going to deal with this? But I say this to the girls, we always get through it. I say to the girls, the sun always shines on, got your back, sister. We always find a way through when little things pop up. And I think so trying to maintain a positive outlook and going, you know what, in the scheme of life, it's not really a big deal. Yeah. And I do say to myself every now and then, you got through breast cancer, Mel. You got through breast cancer. Do you know what? Everything else, just be of service. Have good values and try and be the best you can be, and just if stuff happens. Yeah.
A bit of perspective, it's great.
Yeah.
So before we go, give you a chance, how can people help?
Oh, okay. So we, you know what? The easiest thing I say to people is, you know what? One thing that we do at Got Your Back Sister is we give out groceries. If you have a spare a couple of cans of groceries, we love that at Got Your Back Sister. If you want to come and volunteer or be part of some of our fun community activities, reach out. We always love volunteers.
On the website?
Yeah, website, yep. Just get our email address and email us. We love cash. Everyone loves cash. But do you know what? We also love to collaborative partnerships. We absolutely love that. So if any organisations want to get involved in any of our campaigns or look at ways that we could partner and do some community stuff together, we love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mel, thanks for joining us
Thank you.
Down to Business. And until next time, cheers.